Jamesie O'Connor, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian.
I don't know how much of that you go along with, but anybody who's sort of been reading any of the reports this morning from Ennis last night can even further buy into that theory that Limerick are going to walk it again this year.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far. It's still very early days, Adrian. It's the middle of February, but certainly, I mean, as Dahi alluded to there, what we've seen so far from Limerick has been, really impressive. And I was in Cusack Park for that Fitzgibbon semi-final yesterday as well, and I thought Gillane was magnificent. It wasn't so much, it's just the flashy things he did, the scores he got, whatever, but it was the bread and butter stuff, the ball winning, the selfless, the hook and the block and the tackling, the laying off, passes to players in better positions. And, I thought, as Dahi said, he was in, unbelievable physical condition, looks to have got physically stronger. And Joe O'Connor was the Limerick strength and conditioning coach, who was with Clare back in 2013 as was regarded as one of the top guys in the country. And certainly, the Limerick players look like them. Yeah, they haven't dropped their standards, and with the depth they have, they're the benchmark now for everybody else.
Just like Gillane scored 9 points a couple of weeks ago, 112 last night. I know you're saying it's not all about the scores, but is there something else you're seeing about him that he's sort of ready almost to kick it on a level again? I mean, despite a bloody phenomenal 2018, kick it on again this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, he looked like the best player on the pitch yesterday. He looked like a guy who, had an All-Ireland medal and played with the poise, I suppose, and the confidence, of having done that. And, Luke Meade was on the pitch, and, Thomas Monaghan and Conor Whelan, and Whelan did some good things on limited ball, but Gillane just looked, as I said, like a class apart, and a fella that was, playing at the peak of his powers, and he's still, whatever, 22 years of age, so there's arguably better to come from this guy. So, if I was John Kiley and I was getting reports from Ennis yesterday, I'd be a happy man. And obviously, the depth Limerick are building with Peter Casey, these other guys trying to break into the team as well. They're in a very, very strong position. But Adrian, Kilkenny would feel that they had every chance to beat Limerick last year. Certainly Clare, Cork, Tipperary, the other Munster contenders will feel that, on their day, Limerick aren't that far ahead of them. But certainly, from what we've seen to date, as I said, they are the bar for everybody else. And there seems to be, in terms of the way they handle the success, a real hunger that, this isn't going to be a once-off. This is a team that plans and wants to win more. And as I said, that's a reflection of how well John Kiley has managed them.
The interesting thing there is that they seem to have got stronger physically than they have last year. They haven't just kind of plateaued or got back to where they were at physically last year. They actually seem to have gone up another notch. They look bigger. And this is something we've seen with Galway over the last couple of years, Jamesie, that Galway were kind of seeing. And if you were at a match, you'd see that they're kind of towering figures. Is this kind of a sign of where hurling might be going over the next couple of years, that if you're bigger, you've got a better chance of actually getting into teams?
Yeah, I mean, again, this was I'm not a strength and conditioning expert, but I'd imagine that, when Joe O'Connor or the strength and conditioning coaches take over, they're working to a plan, and often these plans, it's not a 1 year plan, it's maybe a 3, 4, 5 year plan. And the Limerick guys are probably into year 2 or year 3 of that programme, and they're doing the work in the off season, and it's not like these guys now let themselves go or lose the gains that they made. If anything, they hold on to them and then add to them and build on them. So yeah, listen, power is obviously a kind of big role to play in the modern game, and you can't but be impressed with the physique of the Limerick squad. And as you said, the Galway guys certainly have got bigger, and they're a big physical team anyway. But their interest is look at probably year 3 or year 4 of these programs, and you can certainly see the gains that they're making year on year.
If it is a case that they've been looking at the other players and it sounds the other teams, and it sounds like it probably is, and bulking up on the back of that, it strikes me that it probably would have been almost easier for John Kiley and the management team in some ways to have gone, well, look, we did it this way in 2018, it worked then, we're just going to go with the same thing again. Like there's there's a bit of a bravery around tweaking stuff like that, because the impact of that physical thing, I mean, it could be anything. We see it with golfers quite frequently, that it puts their, if they bulk up or if they lose significant amount of weight, in some cases it throws them off kilter a little bit. There's an inherent risk almost involved with that.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that they're bulking up or putting on muscle mass for the sake of it. I think it's probably as part of a program. And these guys, a lot of them are young. They're still growing. They're still getting stronger. And I think the big thing is it doesn't seem to have impacted or impinged in any way on their hurling. And as I said, Gillane was ripped yesterday, but I mean, certainly his touch, his strike, and everything about his game was where you'd want it to be, and where you'd expect to see it come summer. I thought he was so sharp yesterday. but it was his ability to win his own possession. And Kilkenny and Clare, I was at that game in Ennis obviously 2 weeks ago, and again, both sides impressed me again with their physical conditioning. I mean, so I don't necessarily think that Limerick are miles ahead of everybody else in that department, but they are the barristers, and they're maybe the ones that the focus is probably on, that it maybe doesn't appear to be on the other teams in the competition. But that's not to say that Kilkenny and Clare and Tip and the other Division 1A teams aren't doing the same work and the same type of work in the gym.
Yeah, and Limerick are at Kilkenny on Sunday at Nolan Park. Sunday 2 o'clock throw in there. Did you say you were at the Kilkenny game a couple of weeks ago?
I was at the Kilkenny Clare game, yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cracking contest. Clare obviously were coming off the disappointing performance in Thurles, and Kilkenny had opened up with the win. And Kilkenny have come to Ennis a couple of times in the past when Clare have needed to rebound, and Clare have taken their scalps. So Kilkenny were going to be up for it, and they were. And it was a proper contest from the off, a really, really good game. And I thought Clare played really, really well, and it was a lot of positive things from them. Shane Golan was excellent in the middle of the field. Conor Cleary played really well centre back. Some of the younger players did well, and at the same time, Cody will, I think, have taken a lot of positives out of it as well, because Clare maybe were 5 clear, and then Kevin Kelly, or 4 clear, and Kevin Kelly got a late goal that maybe obviously narrowed the gap. But Hugh Lawler thought that a lot of good things at full back, and that's a key position for them, because Pádraig Walsh came on towards the end in his favour, probably wing back position, and automatically Kilkenny looked stronger forward. And Kilkenny were down quite a few players. Killian Buckley didn't play. Obviously the Ballyhale contingent weren't there, and I thought, they didn't come away with the points, but I still thought there were a lot of positives for Kilkenny, and obviously Clare to take away from that game.
Yeah, that's obviously like a key point you touched on there, is the Hugh Lawler factor at full back for Kilkenny. Are you seeing that this is going to be a concrete thing for Brian Cody going forward towards the summer? Because, as you say, the knock-on effect of having Pádraig Welsh out on the wing is humongous, Jamesie, because this is the sort of thing that can actually change. This could be a 4 or 5 point swing if they manage to take this all the way through to the summer.
It could, yeah, because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I don't think he's serviceable as a full back, and he didn't let them down. In any of those games last year, Liam Rush maybe caused him a couple of problems in the first game against Dublin, but in terms of what he gives them going forward, wing back, especially with Buckley in that half back line as well, suddenly it's a platform. It's potentially a really dominant line, and I think the only way he's going to find out about Hugh Lawler is to see him coming up against the Seamus Flanagans and the John Connans and so on. And Connan is as big a handful as anybody in the country, and maybe Connan had 1 or 2 moments, but I thought by and large the fullback acquitted himself quite well, and I think, as I said, Cody will see what he's capable of in these games, and that's the best barometer in terms of whether he can cut it when it really matters. And there were plenty of positives I think for Cody to take away from him and from some of the other performances that he saw in Ennis.
What sort of hurling is it from Kilkenny that you're looking at, Jamesie? Because it seemed as if, I don't know if it's the conditions of the pitches or the time of the year or whatever, but they were playing a pretty sort of short, almost possession-based game, maybe against Cork. What were you seeing from them? Yeah,
listen, again, going short when it's on, keeping possession, and that's just the way the game has evolved now. That there's one ball in the pitch, and teams are loath to give it away, and considering the players they have to come back into it, and the first maybe choice players that they were missing. I still thought that they played a lot of good hurling. Their half forward line struggled a little bit in the second half. The Clare half back line got on top. Cleary was excellent centre back, and Colin Malone had a really good game on the wing as well. And both of those guys were dominant in the air. And some of the Kilkenny supporters around me were, I suppose, lamenting maybe the lack of ball winning ability in the half forward line. So that might have been maybe an area of concern. But yeah, look at just trying to play that possession game, trying to take the right option, and they got a lot of good scores. And as I said, Clare, were 5 clear, but it didn't feel like Clare were that comfortable. And Kelly's goal, obviously, from the lead ball narrowed it, right at the end. But it was a proper contest right the way through, and it was a game that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, they were. Obviously, Clare were so close in so many ways last year, and did so well in Munster, obviously, and picked up a fair bit of criticism after the Tip game. You said it earlier on. It's very difficult to, in some ways, read too much, particularly in that first round where the conditions were pretty grim in a lot of ways right around the country at that stage. Just from a Clare perspective, what are you seeing? Are any new players in? Tweak of systems? What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, Colin Guilfoyle, had a very, very good Munster League campaign. Again, he's a big physical player. He was playing for Mary I yesterday.
Yeah.
So look at they're getting a look at him. Dermot Ryan, who Connor was centre back in 2013. He's an exciting prospect. He played well, worked very, very hard at wing forward. Aidan McCarthy didn't play the last day, but I thought played quite well against Tipperary. Gary Cooney again played for Mary I yesterday. So there are some good young players, and Golden is kind of back from injury, and maybe he's a little bit older now, and maybe appreciates the opportunity he's been given. And as I said, I thought he was fantastic for Clare in the middle of the field. I mean, everybody, Adrian, I think, is trying to build depth. We saw that Limerick, particularly in the semi-final last year against Cork, were able to go into the bench and improve the team and give the team that infusion of energy, that maybe that kick that got them over the line. And Cork probably, didn't have that same depth. And that's, I think, what every team now is looking for. Can we find two or three players that will, can make the difference coming off the bench, and especially given the nature of the championship and how attritional it's going to be with the games in close proximity, you're going to need 18, 19, 20, 21 players, and I think that's the big thing for management now. Out of this league, can we solve maybe one or two problem positions? Fullback for Kilkenny been maybe one possible example, and find a couple of guys that have shown us that they're capable of living at this level.
Yeah, it certainly seems that the league hasn't been affected too much by the lack of relegation. I think we were all worried that the league would just completely fade into irrelevance, Jamesie, but it's actually been pretty decent so far. And looking at all the fixtures this weekend, everything that's on TV, I'm certainly watching them.
Yeah, again, it's just, obviously the lack of relegation. People thought that we made the assumption maybe that would maybe take the edge off it. That certainly wasn't apparent in Ennis. As I said, it was a proper contest, and Limerick and Tip the night before was exactly as you'd expect it to be as well. At the end of the day, I mean, look at players want to play in these games, and underfoot conditions in Ennis, were really good. The pitch is really good there. It was good yesterday for that Fitzgibbon semi-final, and you'd hope that the weather is only going to pick up as well.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think there's been no dilution of the competitiveness, and especially when you have maybe some new faces and managers maybe have a bit more scope for experimentation. With the same pressure arguably not been there, the guys that are out there want to impress, and they want to win these games. And as I said, it's still very early. It's still the middle of February. But if it's a foretaste of what's to come, I think we're in for another really exciting season.
Jamesie, really good to take the call. Thanks a million.
No problem, guys. Talk to you.